of this young, bold state. But the fact of the matter is, they can't afford to ignore the king and his diplomats.
True. During your rule, your decision tended to promote open boundaries and good relations with other king countries. Yeah.
How do you turn the stolen lands, savage and unruly, into a stronghold of safety and stability? The king found an answer. By creating a police state.
What?
There are always some who are unhappy with the excessive interference advisors have in the citizens' lives, of course, but their protests are easily overlooked.
Wait, that's not good. That's not what I would want. As for issues regarding the kingdom's safety, you most often opted to react to threats quickly and firmly, rooting them out at their origin, which doesn't mean it has to be a police state. I'm not so watching over my people. Oh, I'm sorry.
The king became a true patron of fine crafts. Over time, the castle treasury filled with wonderful gifts from the best masters in the area. Armor, weapons, even magical artifacts. And the collection is still growing.
Yes, I definitely did not sell every item I got. True. I kept them.
No kingdom can function without its nobility, and the kingdom in the stolen lands is no exception. Landowners, ready to share the burden of ruling alongside the king, grew to be more and more influential over time. And the more pompous the court balls and receptions held by dukes and baronets became, the more eventful were the lives of the schemers and freeloaders who always live within the shadows of the powerful. The feud between Brevois North and South, which had been smoldering for ages, never sparked the fires of civil war. Through great effort, our king managed to bring both parties to the negotiating table. While Rostland didn't gain its independence, it did receive wide autonomy rights. Our relationships with both House Sertova and the Sword Lords are respectful, but they've become lukewarm. Because of us, neither side got everything they wanted. Chandra Merve returned to our court, but just half a year later, she was poisoned. No one found out who did it or why.
Wait, what? Why did Chandra get poisoned? You insisted that Aldori and Sotova stop fighting and engaging in its intrigues against each other. Indeed. I'm so surprised. Why is Chandra dead?
Led by careful, level-headed Dugoff, the Tiger Lord's tribe reunited and started to lick the wounds left by the erratic Armagh. Little by little, they once again became one of the strongest mercenary armies in the region. Dugoff always assured our king of his friendship, but the king always stayed on his toes, understanding that anything could happen when that old fox is around.
That doesn't sound too nice.
Pitax almost returned to its former state, a joyful city filled with beers of dubious quality and deals of questionable legality. The old trade houses lost the crown, but they retrieved the property Iravetti had taken from them. Soon, Pitax became almost like a second capital in the kingdom, a thriving city through which rivers of money from across the region ran. Unfortunately, we get much less of this money than we would like. Governor Liachenza turned out to be helpless against widespread embezzlement.
You little shit. Thank you, I will not take you again. After defeating Iravetti and taking control of Pitax, the governor you choose was Gaspero Liazanza, brother of the former Pitax king. You stupid. I thought you were good.
Amid chaos and fighting, Headmistress Gitaren managed to preserve the Academy of the Arts, though not its reputation. Only sycophants willing to dash off odes to the highest bidder, primarily our king, stayed to work and study under her tutelage. One could say the Academy still flourishes, though in the same way a pond covered with duckweed turns green on a sleepy summer day, slowly becoming a swamp. No one dreams of studying at the Academy anymore. But for those more concerned with reality than dreams, it will always have a comfortable room.
Ah, damn it. Well, it's one part I didn't care too much about.
The dangerous man-eating trolls disappeared entirely from the forests and swamps of the Stolen Lands. kobolds, though, being sneaky and clever, are still sometimes met by travelers and hunters who wander off the beaten track. Some even say the short reptiles still praise the great King Tartuk, but no one knows for certain. As soon as anyone approaches the kobolds, they forget their military honor and turn tail.
Winning the battle, you decide to spare Tartuk's life, but banished him from your lands. I like how they call him Tartuk now, not Tatusio.
After enduring so many storms and troubles, Varnhold eventually turned into a real city. Daring settlers decided to conquer the vast, wild expanses of Dunsword, and despite all odds, they succeeded. The modest colony that almost vanished at the hands of an ancient lich turned everything around to become a thriving city with lively river trading.
You saved Megaworn, the founder of Warnhold, from the terrible magic of Cyclops lich named Mordecai. Is it one choice you could actually screw up? Because this was the easiest one I've had.
Agay, the Spriggan leader, learned a valuable lesson after surviving his meeting with the king and even regaining his tribe's home. Don't try to occupy seemingly empty settlements anymore. Instead, the Spriggans settled across Dunsword's wild borderlands and proclaimed it as their domain. Keeping the peace in a situation like that seems like the stuff of dreams, as evidenced by the occasional lost patrols and stolen cattle.
You spared Agay, the leader of the Spriggans, who you met in this desolated Warnhold. Oh, now I remember. We had like a really short visit to him.
After the kobolds and mites disappeared, the empty caves beneath the old sycamore quickly became home to all kinds of disgusting critters.
Oh no.
Giant centipedes being the most innocent and pleasant of them. Attempts have been made to clear out the caves, but it never takes long for something to take up residence again. In the end, the decision was made to block the entrances and burn the giant tree down, destroying the roots that held up the
so
ceiling
rude.
of the caves.
To be fair, I only killed them because I want the XP. I just wanted the levels. Ah, poor little tree.
Oleg's trading post continues to thrive, attracting even more travelers. Much to its owner's displeasure, a small town is springing up around it. Despite Oleg's grumbling, he and his wife are well regarded by everyone, and Svetlana was even elected town chief.
She got elected, not him? I mean, I can see him not wanting to. In a dispute with the Swordlords about who should collect tax from Oleg's trading post, you choose to peacefully convince Jamandi to pass the post into your jurisdiction.
Keston Gares took a post as chief of the kingdom's guard. The former heir to a noble family never returned to Brevoy, severing all ties to his kin.
Aww.
However, a few years after the victory over the First World, a girl arrived from Brevoy and soon married Keston.
Oh,
They
that's
say
so...
Keston started smiling a lot more after that.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm glad he got this happy ending. Good on you, man.
Tisana, Lamashtu's priestess, didn't remain in the king's service for long. One night, she just disappeared from the castle and set off for the kingdom's borders, preaching to anyone who would listen and granting the needy the blessing of the Mother of Monsters.
Honestly, I really like her. For some reason, I really like her. I don't know why. Maybe the art style. Like she's not the usual character you would see.
Having participated in Lamashtu's ritual, Olika gave birth to a strong and healthy baby. Sadly, the child grew into an unruly and violent adolescent. Having maimed the peer at just 10 years of age, the boy escaped to the Gnarl Marches, fleeing the rage of a mob that tore his mother to pieces instead.
Oof.
No one knows what happened to the lad, but legends of Lamashtu's child, who sometimes kills lost travelers and sometimes leads them to safety, are passed on by word of mouth throughout the area.
You allowed Sana, priest of Lamashtu, to perform the ritual to help the unborn child of Olika, the widow of the merchant Lexon. Wife of Lexon, a merchant killed by bandits not far from the house of Bartholomew the Wizard. I'm so sorry for this kid.
Breinhardt became a loyal ally and trade partner of the kingdom, and Darwin himself had been seen as a frequent guest in the capital. The elegant monarch of the neighboring kingdom has broken many hearts at court. After his visits, many young guards and servants have been seen staring through windows, sighing wistfully about something.
You helped Darwin defend Breinhardt against the Order of the Rack, and now have a reliable ally on your southern border.
The Fae took a fancy to the kingdom, feeling totally at home here. They often play various pranks, but they never do any serious harm.
Good.
Falcos and Teresia managed to restore the magic forest. Once freed of the anger of the Scythe Tree, people returned to the abandoned village, and it became a haven of friendship between the Fae and ordinary people, just like old times.
You helped two Fae, Falcos and Teresia, by sparing them from the Scythe Tree. That's such a minor little quest. And it still had a slide here. That's so cool.
The lizard folk of the Longtail tribe returned to live on the shores of Candlemere, but they couldn't return to their ancient way of life. Living alongside people, the lizard folk adopted their behaviors, habits, and even religion. More and more of the Longtail tribe pray not to the spirits of their ancestors, but to Erastil or Gorum. They even began to forget their original language. I hope someone writes down their songs and legends before they all sink into oblivion.
That's a good thing. That's just progress. It means one day there will be an entire, civilization, have their own kingdom.
A delegation of wizards from Absalom and other areas appeared in the kingdom one day, asking for permission to examine the lair of the Lich Farneris the Thoughtful. After completing their research, the wizards spent a long time thanking the king for freeing the world of that monster. In their opinion, he'd been capable of causing the end of the world, maybe even 2 worlds.
Okay, glad I dealt with him.
Evindra was glad to see the Lantern King's plans turn to dust. She spent some time helping restore the kingdom after the calamity, then returned home to the First World. They say the rebellious spirit of her cousin Nyrissa awoke within her as well. Evindra is said to recount our story to the Fae, encouraging them to question the power and might of the eldest.
Oh, that's nice. And this is a fine, damn huge little giant. I never noticed. One of these are maybe people with long hair. You never know. The Fae world is very interesting. Oh wait, let's read that. And Nereid, formerly a friend of Nerissa, then imprisoned by her at White Rose Abbey.
After the victory, the storyteller abandoned his affairs and began spending a lot of time alone in contemplation. He eventually bid farewell to the king and left his lands. But I suspect the inhabitants of Golarion haven't heard the last of this mysterious traveler, for his own story is hardly finished.
Oh? Or is it just a little, because he's a storyteller and his own story isn't finished? A little,
Amiri remained a pariah to her native tribe, but she stayed close friends with Nylak, who ruled the Six Bears wisely and taught them to survive in the unfamiliar plains and cities. The restless barbarian would often travel for long stretches of time, but sooner or later she would always return to her old friends, bragging about new scars and recounting new feats, many of which Nylak immortalized in song.
Ah, a close friend of Amiri from her native Six Bears tribe.
Valerie stayed to serve the king, and to this day, she terrifies anyone who would dare break the law.
Oh no.
Forceful and assertive, Valerie has finally shed her crowd of admirers and set herself upon the path of ultimate law, the same path so honored by the austere Hell Knights. Need I even mention that Valerie eventually decided to try on their black armor, only to find that it was a perfect fit?
Oh no, Valerie! You've come a long way with Valerie and helped her finally break old ties with the goddess Shalene. Valerie refused to accept divine judgment and only confirmed her desire to remain independent. Oh shit! So I could have made her more accept her god, Shalene, and she would not be so angry. I'm sad.
Aram became famous, respected by dwarves throughout our kingdom as well as our neighbors, even as far as the Five Kings Mountains. He's often been asked to help out or teach others, and he's never denied anyone, despite his grumbling. Some people even listen to his preaching. Lucky for us, there's a lot less howling about the end of the world now, and more wise words of moderation and humility. Not all of his disciples turned to Grotus, but everyone took away something useful from his teachings.
I'm so glad he's not as depressive as he used to be. You've come a long way with Aram, and seem to have convinced him to let go of his issues with dwarves, accept his place in the cycle of creation and destruction. Good.
Once the war was over, Tristan kept his promise to Sarenrae. In the middle of celebrating the king's victory, the priest suddenly disappeared in a flash of light, vanishing forever. I hope Sarenrae didn't take the Movonic Deva's memory, so her servant might still remember us and the Stolen Lands. Or if she did, I hope he was at least able to forget everything about the lands in which he endured so much suffering.
You recommended Tristan return to his life as a diva, and then end the embrace of his goddess Serene after you defeat Nerissa.
After the war ended, Ekin hung up his bow on the wall and traded the path of the ranger in for the craft of the carpenter. It may not be the most heroic ending to a tragic story like his, but as Torag is my witness, Ekin's happy with it, as is Alina, who became his wife and is bearing his child.
Yes!
Any baby born into this family will be pretty lucky, since the king himself still visits his old friend and will likely become the child's patron.
Nice. At least something good. You decided Ekin should conduct a ritual to say farewell to his dad family and find peace. That was what I was aiming for. Very nice.
Jubilost returned to the life of a traveling explorer, frequently visiting his favorite kingdom. He said so himself. His famous work studying the First World all opened with a dedication to his longtime companion, the king. Another name was also mentioned, 2Z, my guide and inspiration. Admirers would ask Jubilost many times about this mystery lady, but he would only chuckle, hitch his knapsack on his shoulder, and return to storm the vast expanses of the First World once again.
Oh, that's so adorable. You recommended Jubilees to pass the gift of immortality to Sia, the ghost of the miserable gnome wizard.
As for Knock Knock, apologies, I mean Jester Knock Knock, he continued to be a great source of entertainment for the kingdom, both in and out of the throne room, sometimes even on purpose. His antics in the kingdom had an additional effect. Aside from bringing joy and amusement to the citizens, it also softened the common view of goblins. They even became welcome in the streets of the city, for a time. While he may not have become the hero he envisioned, Knock Knock did find himself and his inner strengths thanks to the king. If you should ever find yourself in the kingdom, be sure to seek him out. He'll gladly regale you with some new tale of adventure, one that will surely make you smile, whether our foolhardy, clumsy, well-intentioned goblin means to or not.
Under your influence, Knock Knock discovered in himself a jester's gift, and realized that he could achieve much through his clever skill of making others laugh.
Rigongar was by the king's side day and night, his right hand, closest friend, and most trusted companion. He didn't interfere in ruling the country, but there were rumors of secret assignments he completed under royal orders. Not to mention the festivities he hosted when there weren't any matters of state to attend to. Not to mention the festivities he and our leader held to celebrate the marriage. It must be said, he refused to call himself a king, instead taking the title of Prince Consort.
Alright.
As for myself, the author of this book, Lindsay, who never chose a pretty nickname, I stayed here, within my own book, to watch what happens in the kingdom and one day write this epilogue. I hope, O honored reader, that you learned something important from this story, or at least were entertained by it. And now that it's concluded, I have only to set the final period and go silent forever.
Aww. Well, I definitely had a lot of entertainment from this game. I definitely had, yes. I don't think I learned anything important, but I definitely had fun. was a nice journey. A little frustrating at the end. A lot frustrating. But very enjoyable. Well, we've done it. We finished the game. Where did it save? 5 days. Apparently we played for like 5 days. That's 100... Well... I can't do math anymore. 120 days around? Oh, I'm here, okay. Well... That was a very fun game. Like I said, the ending was a little rough. Reaching... The chapter just stretched out way too hard there. That was just way too much. But it was a very fun game and I enjoyed it, and I will definitely play the next one.